Hello everyone, I'm Yatish Kuril, founder of Yatish ManageMentor Show. We normally invite successful entrepreneurs, distinguished faculties, and experts across the world who will be speaking on the best practices used in the company's ideas, innovations, research, and insight for SMEs and family managed businesses. Today, our speaker is Dr. Akhil Shahani. Let me read his profile. Dr. Akhil Shahani is the managing director of Shahani Group, which runs a franchised range of colleges in areas like business, media, real estate, finance, and others. His colleges incorporate global industries-oriented education system that make their graduates truly employable. Additionally, he runs the ad tech platform like Ask Careers and recruitment firm Ask Talent Services. He is also a venture partner in Kaizen West, which is India's first private equity fund focused solely on the education sector. In addition, Akhil serves as the chairman of Global Discovery Schools, which are a franchise chain of 14 innovative schools. Akhil's work in the non-profit space is also extensive. He is on the advisory board of United India and IDOBRO, which are the two incubators supporting social entrepreneurs. He is the director of the Sage Foundation and trustee of the Shahani Trust, which both have range of charitable initiative in education. Akhil sits on the board of 28 iconic colleges in Mumbai. He has completed his MBA from Kellogg Graduate School of Management in Chicago and his doctorate in education from the University of Liverpool, where his thesis is in the areas of student employability. Akhil is the recipient of many awards for his work in education, like the Jamnalal Bajaj Award, Bharat Shiromani Award, PIMR Outstanding Educationist Award, Rex Karamveer Chakra Gold Award, the Bharat Gaurav Award, and the Indira Gandhi Priyadarshini Award, among others. He is a regular speaker at the conferences and has been extensively profiled in media. So I first then I would like to thanks Dr. Akhil Sani to come and speak on styles of leadership today. And let me know if I missed out something in the profile, so you can also tell us something about yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Yatish. I think obviously the profile introduction has been quite extensive, and thank you very much for sharing that. Of course, prior to doing my work in the wider education group I'm part of, I also was in the software industry and the commodities industry. And the point I'm trying to make is that when you look at the culture of an edtech company and a classic college and a PE fund and a software company, these are all very, very different cultures. Now, the thing is that my leadership style has been tested across all these platforms while I was running them. So it's a lot of what I'm going to talk about today has been based on my research on leadership, what works, what doesn't work, and how the audience in this stream, the family business owners, the SMEs, the entrepreneurs, would actually be able to adapt to their own leadership style to run their own organizations, and of course for younger people, how to develop as leaders as they go along. So I think without further ado, I guess we can kick into the session.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I will just make this full screen, and Yatish, is this visible?
Yeah, visible.
Okay, great. So let's talk a bit about how does one become a great leader. Now, when you think of leaders, I mean, you look at the media, you always think of guys like Jeff Bezos of Amazon, Steve Jobs, and Elon Musk. These are sort of like the entrepreneurs everybody looks at and says, hey, I want to be like a Steve Jobs, I want to be the next Elon Musk, so on and so forth. But what you have to ask yourself is the question, they may be multi-billionaires, but are they great leaders? Surprisingly, not necessarily. In fact, they've actually had very interesting. When you look at the people who work with them, most of the people who work with them said that they are not very good leaders. In fact, they are actually very toxic leaders. So, for example, Jeff Bezos has been known to, even though he is like one of the richest guys in the world, he actually makes sure his people have the lowest wages. He limits the amount of time they can have for lunch. He said that literally, if you have more than half an hour for lunch, we will actually deduct your salary. If you go for more than 2 toilet breaks in a day, we will deduct your salary. So he actually is one of those. Amazon is supposed to be one of the most hard-driving toxic cultures in the world. Similarly, Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs actually was very, very sort of perfectionist in saying that every time an engineer used to make a project, he used to come in and tell the engineer, look, I don't care how much work you put into it, how many hours you put into it. I think it's the worst project I've ever seen. I'm just going to shut it down without taking an argument. Again, so a lot of talented people used to leave Apple while Steve Jobs was there. Elon Musk, in fact, is always interesting. So he actually has this habit of just putting random tweets, which actually, for example, Tesla, while the company was growing, he actually put a tweet about Tesla stock, which was against the laws of the SEC of the US, and that made the stock drop because of a random tweet. So he's very erratic. The point is, then you ask the question is that how do these toxic leaders do so well? Now, what you need to understand is that they all are based in the tech industry, and they're all based in Silicon Valley, right? Now, Silicon Valley is probably the only, let's say, environment where you can be a highly creative, toxic leader. People will throw money at you, and you'll be able to make things your way or the highway. However, outside of Silicon Valley, outside of the tech industry of Silicon Valley, there's no other organization, there's no other geography, no other country which is similar to Silicon Valley. So, therefore, saying that I want to be like a Jeff Bezos or a Steve Jobs or a Elon Musk in terms of leadership style may not necessarily give you the best results in your own organization, right? So let's talk about what are the leadership styles that people are looking at, because there are many. There's not like one great leadership style that everyone should adopt. So let's talk a bit about some of them. So one of the most common ones are the autocratic leaders, which is again related to what Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and all follow. The autocratic style is more like, okay, the great leader says, I will make decisions. I don't care what the rest of the team think. I just want them to follow orders without actually questioning my orders. It's very, very good if you are a military leader when you have like a war and you want to, make sure your soldiers are following the orders and they have to work quickly. They can't question. There's no time for discussion or debate. You just say, look, this is the order, follow it without question. I mean, when you're in like a war environment. Also, very often when a company is sort of going down the tubes and actually has to doing very badly, sometimes they get these sort of turnaround experts in large companies who actually come and say, look, we have no time to think for debate or consensus. Let's start slashing costs. Let's just keep on reviving the company. So a lot of these turnaround experts tend to work very well when companies are going bankrupt to turn them around, but they're not great leaders when the company grows. Also, the problem with autocratic leadership is that it tends to be very demotivating for the team. So most talented people want to feel that their views are heard. What they are doing is actually considered by the top manager, and also they actually are contributing to the company. But if the leader says, shut up and just listen to what I say, that tends to get a lot of top management and a lot of top talent out of the country, out of the company. In fact, a lot of the classic old Lala Indian company used to work like that. The entrepreneur was like the boss, and he had a bunch of these flunkies who were yes men and sycophants who sort of listened to the guy. But unfortunately, they never allowed the company to grow because the entrepreneur, the boss, was the owner and the control of everything. Nobody else was able to grow, so therefore the company remains small. So autocratic is not the best strategy to follow in most environments. This is actually even worse, the bureaucratic leader, and this you see in a lot of very large traditional organizations or governments where there's a manager who says, look, I will blindly follow the rules. I will not necessarily use my own brains to decide, because a lot of these large bureaucratic organizations, the manager is concerned not about necessarily helping the person below them or helping the customer. They're more concerned about making sure that their supervisor does not come down on them and say, okay, you made a wrong decision. Because a lot of these people are very scared of making wrong decisions. Because if they make a wrong decision, they actually will be either fired or the salary cut or whatever. So they say, let me just blindly follow the rules, because if I follow the rules, my senior manager cannot question me. However, if following the rules actually causes a problem with the customer or causes a problem with, let's say, the citizen of India in the government case, I'm not concerned because my motivation is based on following the rules. So this bureaucratic, let's say, a management style or leadership style tends to be really, really bad in most situations, but it tends to thrive in government or these traditional bureaucratic organizations where they have tens of thousands of people, where the management doesn't necessarily trust people below them to actually use their own brains. So they just say, okay, follow the rules, don't question the rules. So that is another type of organization that we see a lot, unfortunately. So this is actually the transactional type of leadership is something that tends to be quite pervasive in the US, especially in the tech industry and the finance industry. They have that classic hire and fire model. They say, look, we want to get talented people. We will make them work as much as possible. We will try to overwhelm them with work to get the best, to get the most out of them. However, most management are not too concerned about developing employees, right? They say, look, you will work for us as much as possible. We are paying you. You better do overtime. You better do extra hours just to get the work done. However, when we need to cut costs or when we need to, let's say, if you're not adding value to the organization anymore, we will fire you. We will not make an effort to develop you. We'll not try to upskill you. We will just sort of hire and fire very quickly and hire someone new. So unfortunately, what happens is that you land up with very low trust in that environment, because the thing is that the employer says, the employee joins the organization and says, look, I'm not here to contribute to the organization. Let me find out what I can do to make sure I get the best salary or the best bonuses for my work. However, I also know that if I get a higher salary somewhere else, I'm happy to jump. The same lack of loyalty that the boss gives to the employee gives to the boss. So there's a high turnover in these sort of companies. And unfortunately, this tends to be a lot of the American style of management. And a lot of people, a lot of management gurus tend to sort of promote that. And unfortunately, a lot of Indian companies are saying that, okay, let's look at a more transactional way of working, which doesn't work beyond a certain point. Because if you have less loyalty to your team, the team will have less loyalty to you, and you will actually not be able to really grow the company beyond a certain point. So a lot of American finance tech companies tend to be very transactional in nature. The other side would be the laissez-faire type group. So if you look at this guy, this is Ritesh Agarwal. He's a guy who started Oyo at the age of Oyo Hotels at the age of 22, 23. So he's actually much younger than most of the people who report to him. So what happens in a lot of early startups is that the entrepreneur tends to be someone who's an engineer or he's created a great tech product, but he does not have the experience to actually manage other people. So what he does, or what she does, is that he says, okay, I will actually outsource a lot of the decision making to my team. I will get very good people. I will trust them to grow the organization, and I will give them a lot of freedom to grow. So this is fine, but what happens, of course, is that after entrepreneur just sort of abdicates the work of leadership to his second team, what happens is that each team member, let's say the marketing, chief of marketing, the chief finance officer, the head of HR, may all have different views of how the company should grow, and they may all pull in different directions. And there's no single leader, the CEO, who actually sort of joins them together, make sure that they work in the same direction. So laissez-faire works very well if you're an early stage startup and if you trust your people to grow the organization. But you can actually limit the growth, because as the organization grows, you need to have a certain amount of strategy, a certain amount of control, which you can't really do with a laissez-faire type leadership role. This, of course, is quite famous. Everyone knows Dhirubhai Ambani, and Dhirubhai actually he was actually smart enough to come up with a great range of second management in his own company. So he had guys like Manoj Vaishya, other people who actually used to work under him. And what he did a point is that he made sure that he consulted a lot of people, because don't forget, Dhirubhai Ambani himself, as you keep on knowing, was a high school, he passed the 10th standard and that's it. And but he realizes that, look, he doesn't have the managerial experience that maybe some of his employees have. So he said, look, let me get the inputs of all these people before I make a decision. But unlike the previous laissez-faire role, he made the final decision. In the laissez-faire leadership style, which I mentioned earlier, the leader abdicates the leadership to the management team. And he said, whatever you people decide is fine. Dhirubhai, or the democratic type of leadership, says, I will take the inputs of all my managers. However, the final decision is still mine. I'm going to decide which way the company grows. So he actually managed to come up with a great organization. As we all know, he became a billionaire within his lifetime, which was very rare in India in the 1970s and 80s. But he did it, and he actually managed to do that because he had a balance of listening to his team and also making decisions that help the company grow by itself. But of course, it works very well for most knowledge-based work, like especially in the finance industry, the banking industry, the ITES services, or most knowledge work-based, most service industries, basically. However, if taken to the extreme, it could slow down decision making, because the CEO says, I'm going to listen to everyone's point of view, but the more you listen to everyone's point of view, it can actually slow down the decisions and give you a lot of confusing, conflicting input. So democratic leadership is great, but you have to make sure that you do move faster and you don't just limit yourself to just getting consensus from the whole committee. Strategic works very well when you are, let's say, running a very, very large organization or you have many divisions. So take a classic Tata, or let's say the Birlas, or you take, let's say, Kumar Mangalam Birla, Ratan Tata, or like today in Chandrasekhar, who will not get involved in the day-to-day operations of the various divisions or the various companies under their thing. They actually are running the holding company. So they will focus more on the long-term strategy of the group, the long-term focus. They do a lot of the PR, so they are the spokesperson of their organization. So it's always N. Chandrasekhar or Kumar Bilda who is talking on behalf of his organization. However, a lot of the CEOs or CXOs under him will actually have a lot of autonomy to sort of grow. However, the overall strategy is on the group, not just on the individual company. So that tends to be strategic leadership. It's a great position to be in, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that. How should I say? Especially as entrepreneur, you may not let's say have the luxury of being a strategic leader at that rate, focusing on strategy and not on the operational part. But it's a style of leadership that works in certain environments. This, of course, is as you know, Gandhiji. So Gandhiji, of course, was a great coach to other people, because don't forget, the freedom movement was not only about Gandhiji and no one else. He actually made a point to say, I will. So if you notice what he did, he actually sort of developed the individual team members in the freedom movement. He developed Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, all the other famous freedom fighters, and he all got them to follow his ideas of satyagraha, his ideas of, let's say, Swadeshi, a lot of ideas of a lot of simple living, high thinking, and that whole Gandhian philosophy. So he let all the individual freedom fighters do what they do and contribute to the larger purpose. However, he did make an effort to make. So, for example, Jawaharlal Nehru. Jawaharlal Nehru was a classic Cambridge-educated lawyer, very British, very very Anglophone, Anglo like British-oriented. But with under Gandhiji's influence, he actually became more focused on Swadeshi, more focused on being more Indianized and things like that. And that's a coaching type of leadership. And this works very well for professional firms, because when you're, let's say, running an investment bank, or you have a consulting firm like a McKinsey, or let's say a Goldman Sachs, you have some of the highest paid, most talented people in the group. So it's very, in a way, it's very difficult to sort of control all their individual points of view and get them to work in a certain way. However, if you focus as a coach to make sure that you develop them as individuals, make sure that they develop themselves, teach them, give them a lot of skill upliftment, give them a lot of ability to grow the organization, you will actually develop the organization to be a much better, much more focused organization to do well. Of course, you'll have to balance the nurturing coaching part with the discipline part. In fact, classic case with the with Gandhiji again. Unfortunately, he was not able to prevent the split of India and Pakistan before independence. So that, of course, he was not able to keep that discipline. But of course, the coaching style works very well in certain environments for professional firms. This, of course, is Deepak Parekh. He sort of built HDFC Bank into one of the largest private banks in India. And what he did basically was, so he was a good coach as well, but what he did basically is that he did a lot of transforming his own employees. Now, the difference between being a coach and a transformational leader is that the coach tends to be a little forgiving of, let's say, the employees or the mentees' mistakes, and tends to be a little more nurturing. The transformational leader says, okay, look, I will try to transform the organization. So I will try to develop my own team members, give them a lot of challenging goals to hit. However, if you're not able to hit those goals or do well, I will then find a way to either let you go, or like not let you fire from the organization, or allocate you somewhere else. So I'm not focused as a transformation leader to developing you personally. I'm looking at saying I want to transform the organization to a much bigger organization. So therefore, I will make sure I give you challenging goals to grow. However, if you're not able to hit those goals, then I'm not too concerned about your personal transformation. Your personal transformation is only as useful as it is useful for the company. If it's not useful for the company, I don't really care so much if you transform yourself. So therefore, it's useful for the organization, and it actually tends to be very successful and a good balance between being a coaching leader and a autocratic transactional leader. But again, keeping that balance is where you have to decide for yourself what works, what doesn't work. So then I think the question really arises is, what's the sort of leader that you should be? Well, it all depends. You can't really say that a coaching leader is better than a transactional leader, or a transformation leader is better than an autocratic leader. It all depends on the organization. So, for example, as I mentioned, if you are, let's say, in a very emergency situation where you have to turn around a company, you have to get people aligned very quickly with a short amount of time, a short amount of, let's say, a short amount of cash. You need to be an autocratic leader at that point to make sure that the work is done. Also, let's say if you are working with, let's say, in a factory where you have a lot of these undereducated factory workers who don't really necessarily want to think, they just want to work for their daily wage, then you may not have the ability to really ask them a lot of questions in terms of saying, okay, what do you think? What do you think about how to grow the organization? So you just have to sort of give them orders that way. So a lot of factory supervisors have to be a little autocratic sometimes to make sure that production discipline is maintained and you make sure you grow. On the other hand, is that when you look at being, let's say, a coaching, like when you look at, let's say, if you're an organization where you have, let's say, a lot of professional managers in place who actually want to grow themselves, you will have to maybe look at being more of a coaching leader or a transformation leader, where you make sure that you have the talent stick with you, because obviously the talented people are the ones who will help you grow the organization. But you also, as a leader, have to make sure that you enable them to grow as and build up the talent to make sure that they are able to grow the organization that way. So autocratic will not work there, but being a coaching leader may not necessarily work on the factory floor. So you have to understand what's the environment that you are put into, and basically what are the sort of things that you need to develop to, what's the sort of leadership style you should adapt. In fact, this is, I think the term is called situation leadership. The situation will drive the leadership style that you want to develop. So that's something that you want. Ideally, you should want to develop most of these 7, 8 styles of leadership, which I spoke about, because each will be utilized when you need to utilize them, and each will have so like a toolbox that you have. You will use the appropriate tool. Sometimes you need a hammer, sometimes you need a screwdriver. You have to use the appropriate tool when the situation arises. So, of course, no matter what leadership style you develop, you also need to make sure that you develop your leadership skills anyway. Because how do you do that? So, I think a lot of it really works on finding ways to maintain discipline. Now, most leaders, great leaders I know, basically, and Dhirubhai Ambani did this, right? So, even though he was, let's say, a 10th standard pass person, he used to be he used to keep on learning a lot himself. He used to have a widest amount of reading. He used to meet a lot of people. He kept on learning from people and from books and from things around him to actually and he had the discipline to focus on these things. So ideally, as a leader, you need to make sure that you have the discipline to focus on what's important, because money comes and goes, but time never comes back once you've lost it. So you need to have the discipline to make sure that you keep on learning new things, keep on meeting more people, learning new methods of leadership or new methods of working. You need to read from the best books. The books are some of the best teachers out there. Look at, don't spend too much time on social media or, just wasting time on TV. Have that discipline to keep on growing yourself. That's the most important thing. Of course, in spite of the amount of time that you have in your own organization, try to do more projects outside the organization. So, for example, there are a lot of these how should I say, a lot of these voluntary organizations, like let's say the Rotary Club, Lions Club, where you can actually do some non-profit work. Because when you're working with other people in the club, for example, the Rotary Club, you will have a lot of other people who themselves are well known in their industry or well known in their community. Now, if you're able to work with them and collaborate with people who are not necessarily, let's say, your flunkies, but actually are also leaders like yourself, doing projects with other leaders will help you develop your leadership skills and learn more from them. Similarly, there are a lot of other entrepreneur groups, like let's say TIE, Ascent, and all, where you can join and work with other entrepreneurs and actually develop your entrepreneurial skills as you go along. Learn to follow. Now, I know that they say that the best leaders first tend to be the best followers, because don't forget is that even though you're a leader, there may be people with better ideas than you. So sometimes you have to be a follower of other people's ideas, not just keep on pushing your ideas and say, I'm the leader and I know everything. So learn to follow as well. Be a follower along with a leader. Situational awareness, as I said, is that the thing is understanding the situation. Are you working with undereducated factory workers, or are you working with highly educated knowledge workers? Understand the situation that you're thrown in and accordingly adjust your leadership style as needed. But however, that said, inspiring others will always work. No matter, even if you're autocratic or you are a coaching style, if you're able to inspire people around you based on your own personal characteristics, based on your own behavior, you will be a better leader anyway, and there'll be more inclined to follow you and do what you want to do. So that inspiring others is actually very critical. You can't, I mean, even though some of the old people say that it's better to rule through fear instead of love, unfortunately, fear doesn't work anymore. Fear was good when you were a king or where you had like a old kingdom where you had an army to under your control. But when you are working with talented people, you need to inspire them. You can't rule with fear. That is not a great thing to do. Of course, keep learning, as I said. Be a good listener, resolve conflicts. The thing is that, as I say at the bottom line, leadership is a mindset. At the end of the day, this is what you need to focus on: is saying that your leadership skills will never, you will never stop developing your leadership skills. At the end, you will be a leader today. You may be a leader 20 years from now, 30 years from now. You make sure that even 5 years from now, you're a better leader than what you are today. Constantly keep on developing yourself. Constantly ask yourself: is that if I'm a leader, how would I behave? How does a leader behave? How can I do the best to make sure that the people around me, the organization around me, is able to perform to the level that I expect? So I think with that, I really have nothing else to add. And thank you, Ratish. I think that is the end of my presentation on leadership.
Okay, so at presently there are no audience. We can premiere it after within 15.
Okay, great, no problem. So then I'll stop screen sharing. And well, I think this has been a great. I think I've been happy with the interaction, and hope it added value to your audience as well.
Yeah, sure. What I will do is I will premiere it again. Then anybody have any question and answer, they can write it to you.
Okay, no problem. Most welcome to. Happy to hear answer any questions.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
what I can say is thank you for coming here and giving us insights on styles of leadership, and hope to invite you in future also if some other topics is there. Like,
so happy to do that. Wish you all the best, Yatish, and I'm sure you do very well with the ManageMentor show. Bye
yeah.
bye.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.